I'm retired Battalion Chief Larry Cockman, Chairman of the Greensboro Fire Department History Book Committee. The American Fire Service is rich in tradition and culture. A firefighter's life is filled with many emotional highs and lows. Stories of major fires, national disasters, medical calls, firehouse living, and family life are often verbally shared from one generation to another. Many times these stories are lost forever when a firefighter passes away. In an effort to preserve these stories, in 2019, the Greensboro Fire Department History Book Committee launched a new program of recording audio-video of our retirees' lives. These stories will be shared on our website, gfhbc.org. In 2020, we did not record because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Please listen as these firefighters share their life experiences with all of us.
My name is James D. Eller. I go by Jimmy. I'm originally from the Greensboro area right outside. Grew up in Stokesdale, North Carolina, and lived there most of my life. I'm related to some of the fellow firefighters that's been on the department. Currently, I have a nephew on, which is Charles Eller, and then my brother was also a firefighter, Carl Eller. What was really funny about that was I was hunting a job at the time, and he recommended that I go to the fire department and apply. So I went up to the office. Chief Powell hired me, and at that time I was asking Chief Powell, well, he said his application in, why did they hiring me but not hiring my brother? So at that time he said mainly that, you know, a veteran was one of the factors, and then I was working part-time. So I went back and told Carl that Chief Powell said that if you was working full-time somewhere that they were hiring mostly part-time. So I told him, so he was working at Pilot Life insurance company on running the computer. So then he stopped, and then it was just a few months later they hired my brother Carl. The real thing that drove me to be a firefighter was my brother. He suggested I apply to be a firefighter, and once I did, I loved the job after I got on. The process when I was hired was you went in and applied for the job, which Chief Powell hired me, and then at that time he was asking me if I already was working somewhere, which I was working part-time. So he said, you can stay on doing your part-time work or you can come to work now. So I chose to not come to work for about a week before they started training. So I worked at the training center about a week, and then we started training February the 1st, 1972, and finished March 19th, 72. So it was about 6 weeks training that we went through, and of course, after we come out of the training, you went to your station, and then you had to pass your probationary test. My probationary test, you had to go back to the training center and go through some evolutions like operate a pumper, or aero ladder, and you had to be efficient and all that to pass the test. So I know we had one or two that didn't, but that was the process of going back and knowing your equipment, learning where everything was, and being able to pass the probationary test. My starting salary at the fire department was $513 payday, which we got paid twice a month, the middle and the end. We had in my training class, we had about 12, and we were the 22nd training class, but some of my fellow firefighters that I trained with was Danny Waller, Eddie Nix, Bob Voss, Jimmy Williams, Joe Smith, Ronnie P. Howick, Steve Robertson, Roger Yates, and Lonnie Klutz, and Bill Faust. Some funny stories that I did have that I remember from training. I know that Lonnie Klutz, he was a basketball player, and he had them long legs. And I know Jimmy Williams, he bet him one day he could outrun him, and Lonnie he took off and he just smoked him, and that was pretty funny. Jimmy had them little short legs, and Lonnie had them long legs, and then another thing was, you know, you had to find your way out of the smoke lab. They put you in them blacked out masks, and we had one guy, I believe, he was in there about an hour trying to find his way out. In one way it was funny, and then another way it wouldn't, but that was two things I remember being kind of funny during training. Yeah, I thought I was doing something special becoming a firefighter, because I'd always heard, you know, that they, you know, save lives and property, and I thought by becoming a firefighter that would be something special, you know, to be there for people when they need you. If they got a bad situation, you can help it make a better situation for them. My first station assignment was Station 5, and I had Ralph Sutton was the captain, Charlie Galloway was the driver. Of course, some other people there at the station, I think Irvin Latter was on Truck 5, and then I think Mike Long was out there, and also Steve Robertson, Archie Andrews, and Joe Smith was not on the same ship, but he was there, and Ronnie P. Howick and Walter Brown. And then also Chief Koontz was my chief. And then the first captain I remember about him, Ralph Sutton, he was just, he was there, you know, he always helped me, you know, being assigned the first assignment. He took pride in trying to make sure you knew the job and all the equipment on the truck. So he just, you know, took me under his wings and made sure I know the job, so that, you know, I did pass my probationary test. Yes, some pranks that stand out to me is, actually I was probably the one that instigated some of them. I had this AK-47 I bought back from the Vietnam. It was a war trophy, and I'll never forget, I had that thing at Station 1, and Chuck Smith, he was wanting me to give it to him one day, and Ben Fields was in the TV room taking a nap. Chuck stuck that thing in the room there, and it sounded like a cannon when it goes off, and Ben's feet come off the floor by a foot, and Ben got pretty mad about that. He said, whoever's gun that is, they better be taking that thing home. And then another one I got was when I was at Station 8, I got Dwayne Church. He was in there, he had a spit can chewing tobacco. And I went over at the door, and I kindly made out like I was trying to unjam around in it. Of course, it was them blanks what I was shooting. And I was over there beating on the thing, and I said, this thing is jammed or something. And I pulled the trigger on that thing, and old Dwayne, he dropped that spit can. It went all over the floor. And then when I went to 9, I was out there, and me and Bill Brown kind of set this up. We had them two rookies there, Ramon Stockham and Fred Irwin. And I told Bill, I said, I'm going to chase you through there, and like I'm mad at you. So I chased Bill through the kitchen into the TV room, and when Bill got in the TV room, I pulled that trigger on that thing, and Bill had got some ketchup slapped on his chest, and Spencer Nolan was there, and he run over there and said, call 911. He said, Bill, let me see where it is, where it hit you. And that ketchup that Bill had put on him, I think Spencer finally smelled, and he knew he'd been had. But I'll never forget, Ramon and Fred was sitting there in the TV room looking at the TV, and Ramon and Fred's eyes got about big as 50 cents, and Ramon said, "Did it get him? Did it get him?" And then he said later, said, "How are we going to explain this?" I had that AK-47 and stuck it up into the bedroom got on a ladder and stuck it up where you slide down the poles. And I guess Rick Travers, he was going to get me back, and he poured this black powder on the floor, run it all the way over there around my bed. And when they set it on fire and it come over, they said it looked like my bed was on fire. It was just, everything was glowing. So that was one they got me back on. Yeah, at the firehouse, my crew cooked and lived together, and we had to take turns cooking. You know, when you come on, if you didn't know how to cook, I guess everybody jumped in and taught you how to cook. But yeah, we pretty much shared meals together and cooked together. I wasn't a good cook at first, but then I become a good cook by, you know, the other firefighters teaching me how to cook. But that was something I did pick up while at the fire station, learning to cook. I think my specialty at the fire department was like hamburgers on the grill, and then if it wasn't that, it was a firehouse meal like pinto beans, macaroni and cheese, cornbread, and corned beef, and something like that. You know, it's mainly what I like cooking. I think it's important that firefighters eat together at the table, because you share stories with one another, what you've, you know, experiences you went through, and then also I think you have more camaraderie by doing that. You know, closeness, closer knit, and you just interact with each other more when you eat and kind of get together at the meal like that and eat together. One thing that's happened crazy at the table is like if one turned the water over, then everybody would turn the water over, or, you know, just it would just escalate from one doing something, and then everybody would jump in. Being from the older firefighter generation and sleeping like at the station, I know when I first come on, everybody slept in one open area, and now they have individual cubicles. The advantage I can see to the individual cubicles, you got more privacy. You know, you can kind of watch it. Most of them got their own TV. You can study probably a little better in a cubicle by yourself versus just one open area. So, but I guess you kind of form more maybe the camaraderie, all being in one space together versus individual. It was just you just kind of I guess learn more about each other by being in an open barracks like that. I think when you visit a station, like a retired firefighter go in, that a young one does take time to, you know, greet you and shake your hand, introduce himself, and that way it makes the retiree more welcome instead of just walking in and, you know, nobody saying anything to you. So it just is a good thing that they welcome you and make you still feel welcome as a firefighter, even though you're retired. I think the value of y'all recording the retired firefighters, that way you can go back and people can look at the video and see actually, you know, who you were. And, you know, a lot of people may hear, well, they know a name, but they don't know nothing about you. So that way, if they've got a video, that way they can actually look at it and hear the experiences of the person telling their experience while they were on as a firefighter. My first fire, and it was actually the first call and a fire, was Station 5, Engine 5, and we had a basement fire on Green Valley Road right off of Friendly, and you know, being a rookie, you know, your adrenaline's flowing, and I know we did an offensive attack, knocked the fire out. It was real hot, smoky, and then Truck 5 set the fans up and ventilated, but I still remember that as being the first fire I went on. I had Captain Sutton as my captain. Yeah, some of the fire calls while I was on that kind of got to me a little bit. I know we had, when I was at Station 11, a house fire. It was like over off of, seemed like it was Garl Street or somewhere in that area, and there was like a bedroom fire is mainly what it was, and it looked like a doll on the bed. And I know Chief Flowers was the chief, and he asked me, he said, "You sure that ain't a doll?" And it was a little girl that had burned up, and that kind of got to me. What happened, the mother had put some cinders in a paper bag and had left the house, and it caught the bedroom on fire, and of course the little girl passed away. But I still remember that as being a bad incident. I had one firefighter that it was a mentor to me was Woody Parrish. When I went to Station 1, he kind of took me under his wings. I was on Engine 1, and I was actually like second driver, and Ben Fields was one of I had 3 captains there, but he was at that time captain when I was with Woody Parrish. But he taught me how to pump the truck, taught me all the equipment on learned about all the equipment on the truck, and then he also kind of helped me with my Firefighter 2. I was getting ready to take the Firefighter 2 test, and he helped me with that, made sure I was prepared to take the test. Then also, he was the one that nominated me for the Firefighter of the Year, and I did, you know, get the nomination and was elected the Firefighter of the Year in '75. So I've always kind of looked up to Woody as being a mentor to me. Yeah, I'd do it all over again being a firefighter, because I just love the job. I like, you know, the camaraderie between the firefighters. Since I was in the military, I already had a little bit of background, but this, you know, becoming a firefighter was kind of led over into, you know, being used to some of the living, and then I'd already heard, you know, that you were there to help, being a firefighter, save lives, property, and trying to help people, you know, just being a help to people in need of help. Some of the proudest moments on the fire department was when I passed all my probationary fire test and probationary test, and then I knew I had the job, so I was proud of that. And then when I got the Firefighter of the Year in '75, and then the day I made captain, I was proud of that. So that's 3 of the proudest moments I can remember. I did work with a female firefighter. I was at Station 14, and I was Captain Anita Strong. I was her captain while I was out at 14. It was an adjustment working with a female firefighter. I know we had to share the bathroom, like one go in and lock the door and then the other, and so that was kind of something to get used to, where everybody else was like just in one bedroom. So that was one thing that, like I said, I had to get used to. And then I guess the guys, you know, working with a firefighter like that, they had to adjust their ways, you know. Kind of, you know, some things you can say around guys, you may have to kind of watch what you say and do with, you know, women firefighters. So it was something to get, kind of adjusted to. Something I may have done being in the fire department, I think I would have pursued a little more education. I did get a 2-year business degree while I was on the fire department and the fire science degree, but I never did pursue the 4-year degree, so I think I would have, pursued a 4-year degree while I was on the fire department. I served my country in the military, and I was in the U.S. Marine Corps. I served for 3 years active, 2 years reserve, and I went through training at Paris Island, and then after that I went to Camp Lejeune for my MOS training, which my MOS was a machine gunner. And I'll never forget, during the training there, we had a sergeant, and he said, take a look at the guy in front of you and the back and on each side. Some of y'all guys are going to be pushing up daisies next year, because he knew we were probably going to be going to Vietnam. And he actually was right that some of the guys did get killed over there that I knew was in my boot camp. But anyway, after going home on leave after I did my MOS training, I was deployed to Vietnam. I was outside about 20 miles south of Da Nang, and I was over there 11 months, and during that time I did receive 3 Purple Hearts. I've got my first Purple Heart was, we was on a tank patrol, and there's like 2 tanks. One tank will go in front and the other in the follower. They go in the same track so that you ain't all over the place, the chance to hit more land mines. But the first one had went over a rice paddy dike, and I guess when we come over the thing after them, we had run over like a 500-pound landmine. It blowed the whole side of the track off, and it was real deafening. I know everybody was checking their limbs and arms and legs to make sure everything was still there, but you couldn't hear. So the corpsman, what he did just to field check us, you'd take a draw off a cigarette and then hold your nose, and the smoke just come out your ears because they were perforated. So what they did, they sent us back to our main compound and let the ears heal up for 2 or 3 weeks, and then put us back out in the field after that. And then another couple of operations I was on was Operation Medina and Lafayette. But I do remember one day patrol we was on, sweeping the area. This one guy, he was, I think, from Washington, and we heard a loud sound go off, and he had stepped on a 105 mine that they'd set up, and it had blown both arms off, both legs off, and he was still trying to get up. And he died about, I think they said 5 minutes after they medevaced, and I remember that. Then I was on a night patrol on one incident, and the front 2 point guys were going down the trail, and we heard all this shooting go on. I was in weapons. I was about halfway back in the line, but at that time you don't know if they killed everybody. Everything's so rounds going off, but they had shot our front 2 point guys, and then of course we had got some of the Viet Cong that had shot them. And but the sergeant started calling off, is everybody all right? And which we were, but at that time, it was just, it was real, not knowing if, they had shot everybody and you were the only one left, but we made it out of there on that. And then another incident I remember, it was where they took us up in the mountains and dropped us off in helicopters. And we was going through the area sweeping all day, and we had this lieutenant, and some of the guys were telling that there's movement over in the tree line. So he said, we got to keep going. So by the time we was getting ready to go out in the rice paddy, they opened up on us from the tree line. And I know one guy, he got shot right in the chest. We had just got the M16s, we had the M14, but them M16, we call them Matty Mateo, but you could get a little dirt in them and they would jam. At M14, you could drag it through the mud, the dirt, and it would still work. But that was one thing I remember. And I know when they was dropping the napalm in there, they had like a spotter plane that would come in there and shoot the smoke around on the ground. And then the F-4 Phantom would come and drop the napalm. But I know at times you could look up and see the fins. They were so close on the bombs that were, they were dropping on them. And I had already heard on the Stars and Stripes, that sometime they were so close they would drop it on friendly troops. So we were kind of worried about that. But anyway, that night, when this was late in the evening, it happened. It was at night. They were shooting these flares up, and we had several wounded out in the rice paddy, and we had to crawl out there at night, bring them back, line them up, and then we formed a 360 around them, and we could hear movement all night. But we'd done shot up most of our ammo, and we didn't know if they did overrun us, they probably would have killed us, but thank the Lord they didn't. And the next day, the choppers come in and brought us more ammo and C-rats, and they medevaced out the ones that were killed and wounded, and that was one operation I remember from being over there. I pretty much adjusted to it. I know some people, just never did. I've heard of some, getting on drugs, they couldn't adjust back to the life. But luckily, I just, kind of put it in the back of my mind and kind of got over everything I did see there. And I've seen a lot of stuff. That was just a few things I'm telling you about. I've seen a lot more stuff there. Bodies blown apart. I mean, I could go on with a lot more stories. I just named some of the few things I talked about. Yeah, the Operation Medina and Lafayette, I've got a little bit of shrapnel. It wasn't bad, but that's how I got my other two Purple Hearts, was from shrapnel. One of my good buddies I lost was that day patrol we was on, that he had lost all his limbs and he had passed away on the chopper, so I remember him. And well, actually what I did, I graduated from Northwest High School, and they didn't draft me. I signed up, I guess not knowing, and I'll never forget when I went to Raleigh to the recruiter down there, he kind of taught me, and I actually signed up for 2 years. He said, well, you know who they're going to send to Vietnam first? He said, the 2-year guys. So he taught me, and was trying to get me to join for 4 years. So I said, no, I'll join for 1 more. So he got me for an extra year by telling me that. While I was on the fire department, the way I put in perspective, faith was first in my life, then the family was second, and the job was third. And by putting them in that order, everything took care of its other self. But that's the way I put in perspective while I was on the fire department, the faith, family, and job. Well, my health overall has been good. I have had a little bit of back problems and shoulder problems. I know my shoulder, they say I actually need like a replacement, but I just keep going on with pain. But overall, I've got pretty good health. I try to do a few things to stay, in good shape, like maybe walking and going to the Y, doing some swimming, and then bicycle riding a little bit. Yeah, some of the big fires I remember while I was on the fire department. I know I was on the More Music fire up off of, I think it was off of Market Street. It burned it up. I think from what I remember, it burned it mostly down. I know Captain Fields was the captain I had at that time. Another one I remember was Summit Avenue. There were several fires there. Buildings were on fire at one time. Summit Shopping Center fire, and I remember Jack Coble was my captain. I was on Engine 1, I remember that. And then another one I remember was the big building fire uptown, and Woody Parrish was acting that day. Ben Fields was off. And I was pumping, and I know I had every port on Engine 1 pumping, and I think I was either pumping into Snorkel or Ladder 1, and I think even the booster line was off. We had everything, and luckily we was on a hydrant. I'll never forget that. It had good pressure, so we, was able to pump everything we had off. And then another one I remember was the Star Mountain Country Club. I was on that, Truck 5. And another one I remember was the fertilizer fire down off of Broome Road. And I had Captain Allen on Truck 11. And I'll never forget that night. It was either Hurricane Charlie or, I remember that fire from being on that. And then Mark Giovanni's, I was on that, it burned it up. Yeah, as a firefighter, I do remember one fire that I was kind of scared on. You'd always heard of like a building or something collapsed. Well, I'll never forget, we was on a building fire uptown, and I was on, I think at that time, I think it was Engine 8, but we was assisting, I think Engine 4, but it was a basement fire, dark in there, you couldn't see, you had to follow the hand lines in, and you could hear all that crackling and popping, and you didn't know if the floor was going to cave in on you. And I'll never forget, at that time, in the back of my mind, I just thought, well, I hope and pray the floor don't cave in, but I was scared at that time because going in that dark basement fire, not being able to see, the only way filling the hose line in and out. But that's one fire I do remember being scared on. I guess what I'd like for the Greensboro Fire Department to remember about me was while I was on, I tried to do the best job I could, and they remember that I was dedicated to the job and tried to do the best I could at the job I did. I cared about other people, tried to be a mentor to whoever I was, over, tried to lead by example and just be somebody, that they would look up to. And that's the biggest thing I would like for them to remember about me. If you had upcoming young firefighters, I think some of the things I would say to them would be always do your best you can. Try to take all the college courses you can, because it's kind of going that way now from what I understand. I think from what I was told, to be a lieutenant or a captain, you got to have a degree now. So I would say try to get all the education you can. Try to be a role model. Try to form camaraderie with the other guys. Be a team player. And try to, you need to be always on time when you come to work. If you can, maybe come to work maybe 30 minutes early to try the shift that's going off, to discuss what went on the day before and go over that. Also, if there's anything you don't understand, just ask the other firefighter, they'll be more than happy to explain to you, you know, if you don't understand something. And also, you need to try to lead by example. You need to never forget where you come from, because, you know, you always started off, so you always want to remember that. And as a whole, just be yourself and don't act, you know, like you know it all. And just in anything you do learn, try to share it with somebody, because, you know, any knowledge you got, if you keep it to yourself, it don't do nobody else no good. So that's some of the things I would, you know, recommend to a young firefighter coming on. Well, I don't know. One thing I can think of that people may not know about me is I'd just like to thank the Lord for my my faith, my being saved and being a Christian, and trying to you know, be a giving Christian to all the people around me. Well, I would like my family to remember about me is that I was always there for them, you know, trying to be a role model for them, try to, you know, teach them right from wrong, and do what you should do in life, and try to raise them. You know, you want to be proud of your kids, and by you being a role model, they can learn from you, and you just need to set an example for your family, so that they end up being, you know, good people, and try to make something out of themselves. The most thing I miss about the GFD is the guys, you know, the station life, you know, living together, sharing things together. You know, just I like the hours that I worked, like, you know, it was 1 on and 2 off, and you know, most of the firefighters did have some kind of part-time work, but I just miss mainly the guys, you know, and being a firefighter and the hours that you work. I'd like to leave a message to my wife. You know, my wife's always been there for me. You know, her name is Connie Eller, and she's always been there for me, because you know, you work a 30-year life at the fire department while you're till you retire, and that's a lot of time away from home. And you know, them being able to put up with that, you being gone, and then, you know, sharing your problems with your soulmate, and just you know, that means a lot, listening to your problems. And so my wife has just been just, you know, like for her to know that I appreciate her just having always been there for me.
In closing, the Greensboro Firefighters History Book Committee hopes you have gained a greater insight into the dangers, the challenges, and emotional events that have influenced and shaped the American firefighter.